Welcome to Audiobooks Hub. Embark on a mystical journey with Chapter 27. Gethse Mane from Neville Goddard's enlightening 1941 masterpiece, Your Faith is Your Fortune. Delve into the profound symbology of Gethse Mane as the garden of creation where consciousness realizes defined objectives. Discover the art of pressing out desires, planting seeds of joy, and nurturing them in the receptive soil of the mind. Follow the footsteps of Jesus, commanding disciplined thoughts, fixing attention on objectives, and entering the spiritual act of generation. Inspiration is achieved. Experience the crucifixion, leading to a Sabbath of rest, paving the way for resurrection. Join us on this transformative exploration of conscious creation. Subscribe for more revelations on Neville's timeless teachings. Let the journey begin. Chapter 27. Gethse Mane. Then cometh Jesus with them unto a place called Gethse Mane, and saith unto the disciples, Sit ye here while I go and pray yonder. Matt 26:36. A most wonderful mystical romance is told in the story of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, but man has failed to see the light of its symbology and has mistakenly interpreted this mystical union as an agonizing experience in which Jesus pleaded in vain with his Father to change his destiny. Gethse Mane is to the mystic the garden of creation, the place in consciousness where man goes to realize his defined objectives. Gethse Mane is a compound word meaning to press out an oily substance. Geth, to press out, and shemen, an oily substance. The story of Gethse Mane reveals to the mystic in dramatic symbology the act of creation, just as man contains within himself an oily substance which, in the act of creation, is pressed out into a likeness of himself. So he has within himself a divine principle, his consciousness, which conditions itself as a state of consciousness and without assistance presses out or objectifies itself. A garden is a cultivated piece of ground, a specially prepared field, where seeds of the gardener's own choice are planted and cultivated. Gethse Mane is such a garden, the place in consciousness where the mystic goes with his properly defined objectives. This garden is entered when man takes his attention from the world round about him and places it on his objectives. Man's clarified desires are seeds containing the power and plans of self-expression. And like the seeds within man, these, too, are buried within an oily substance, a joyful, thankful attitude of mind, as man contemplates being and possessing that which he desires to be and to possess. He has begun the process of pressing out, or the spiritual act of creation. These seeds are pressed out and planted when man loses himself in a wild, mad state of joy, consciously feeling and claiming himself to be that which he formerly desired to be. Desires expressed or pressed out result in the passing of that particular desire. Man cannot possess a thing and still desire to possess it at one and the same time. So, as one consciously appropriates the feeling of being the thing desired, this desire to be the thing passes, is realized as a receptive attitude of mind, feeling and receiving the impression of being the thing desired, is the fertile ground or womb which receives the seed-find objective. Seed which is pressed out of a man grows into the likeness of the man from whom it was pressed. Likewise, the mystical seed, your conscious claim that you are that which you heretofore desired to be, will grow into the likeness of you from whom and into whom it is pressed. Yes, Gethse Mane is the cultivated garden of romance where the disciplined man goes to press seeds of joy to find desires, out of himself into his receptive attitude of mind, there to care for and nurture them by consciously walking in the joy of being all that formerly he desired to be. Feel with a great gardener the secret thrill of knowing that things and qualities, not now seen, will be seen as soon as these conscious impressions grow and ripen to maturity. Your consciousness is Lord and husband. The conscious state in which you dwell is wife or beloved. This state made visible is your Son bearing witness of you. His father and mother, for your visible world is made in the image and likeness of the state of consciousness in which you live. Your world and the fullness thereof are nothing more or less than your defined consciousness objectified. Knowing this to be true, see to it that you choose well the mother of your children, that conscious state in which you live, your conception of yourself. The wise man chooses his wife with great discretion. He realizes that his children must inherit the qualities of their parents, and so he devotes much time and care to the selection of their mother. The mystic knows that the conscious state in which he lives is the choice that he has made of a wife, the mother of his children, that this state must in time embody itself within his world. So he is ever select in his choice and always claims himself to be his highest ideal. He consciously defines himself as that which he desires to be. When man realizes that the conscious state in which he lives is the choice that he has made of a mate, he will be more careful of his moods and feelings. He will not permit himself to react to suggestions of fear, lack, or any undesirable impression. Such suggestions of lack could never pass the watch of the disciplined mind of the mystic, for he knows that every conscious claim must in time be expressed as a condition of his world, of his environment. So he remains faithful to his beloved, his defined objective, by defining and claiming and feeling himself to be that which he desires to express. Let a man ask himself if his defined objective would be a thing of joy and beauty if it were realized. If his answer is in the affirmative, then he may know that his choice of a bride is a princess of Israel, a daughter of Judah, for every defined objective which expresses joy when realized is a daughter of Judah, the King of praise. Jesus took with him into his hour of prayer his disciples, or disciplined attributes of mind, and commanded them to watch while he prayed, so that no thought or belief that would deny the realization of his desire might enter his consciousness. Follow the example of Jesus, who, with his desires clearly defined, entered the Garden of Gethsemane, the state of joy accompanied by his disciples' disciplined mind. To lose himself in a wild joy of realization, the fixing of his attention on his objective, was his command to his disciplined mind to watch and remain faithful to that fixation, contemplating the joy that would be his on realizing his desire. He began the spiritual act of generation, the act of pressing out the mystical seed, his defined desire. In this fixation he remained, claiming and feeling himself to be that which he, before he entered Gethsemane, desired to be, until his whole being consciousness was bathed in an oily sweat joy resembling blood. In short, until his whole consciousness was permeated with the living, sustained joy of being his defined objective. As this fixation is accomplished, so that the mystic knows by his feeling of joy that he has passed from his former conscious state into his present consciousness, the Passover or crucifixion is attained. This crucifixion or fixation of the new conscious claim is followed by the Sabbath, a time of rest. There is always an interval of time between the impression and its expression, between the conscious claim and its embodiment. This interval is called the Sabbath, the period of rest or non-effort, the day of entombment. To walk unmoved in the consciousness of being or possessing a certain state is to keep the Sabbath. The story of the crucifixion beautifully expresses this mystical stillness or rest. We are told that after Jesus cried out, "It is finished," he was placed in a tomb. There he remained for the entire Sabbath. When the new state or consciousness is appropriated, so you feel, by this appropriation, fixed and secure in the knowledge that it is finished, then you too will cry out, "It is finished," and will enter the tomb or Sabbath, an interval of time in which you will walk unmoved in the conviction that your new consciousness must be resurrected, made visible. Easter, the day of resurrection, falls on the first Sunday after the full moon in Aries. The mystical reason for this is simple. A defined area will not precipitate itself in the form of rain until this area reaches the point of saturation. Just so the state in which you dwell will not express itself until the whole is permeated with the consciousness that it is so, it is finished. Your defined objective is the imaginary state, just as the equator is the imaginary line across which the sun must pass to mark the beginning of spring. This state, like the moon, has no light or life of itself, but will reflect the light of consciousness or sun. I am the light of the world. I am the resurrection and the life. As Easter is determined by the full moon in Aries, so too is the resurrection of your conscious claim determined by the full consciousness of your claim, by actually living as this new conception. Most men fail to resurrect their objectives because they fail to remain faithful to their newly defined state until this fullness is attained. Man would bear in mind the fact that there can be no Easter or day of resurrection until after the full moon. He would realize that the state into which he has consciously passed will be expressed or resurrected only after he has remained within the state of being his defined objective, until his whole self thrills with the feeling of actually being his conscious claim, unconsciously living in this state of being it, and only in this way will man ever resurrect or realize his desire. Embark on a transformative journey as we unravel the secrets of consciousness in the next chapter 28. A formula for victory from Neville Goddard's illuminating work, Your Faith is Your Fortune. Dive into the timeless story of Joshua and Jericho, a perfect formula for victory against all odds. Discover the profound symbolism and psychological drama as Joshua, representing your present state, conquers the city of Jericho, your desired objective. Unveil the power of the mind in annihilating barriers through the sole of your foot, symbolizing understanding. Explore the role of Rahab, the harlot, as your infinite capacity to assume any desirable state. Follow the modern mystic's victorious formula. Define your objective, shift focus from obstacles, feel the desired state, and experience conscious satisfaction. Witness the seventh blast, a symbol of stillness, joyful expectancy, and the law of consciousness in action. Trust in the immutable law, stand still in your psychological state, and watch the salvation of the law unfold. Subscribe for more revelations and join the mental freedom train to the principle of truth.